I mean, that's what everyone loves about butterflies, right? They're super colorful and pretty, and they have all these interesting designs and colors, and even the way they make the colors is kind of a unique thing. But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there's, different butterfly species have, different kinds of strategies for dealing with the fundamental problem, which is that, they are desirable as food for birds and for other predators like lizards. And the fact that they have to deal with that throughout their short adult lifespan means that some species have adopted a strategy where they want to hide. So they want to, when they land, they close their wings and you can't really see them very well because they blend into the background. Maybe they look like a dry leaf or something. Those tend to be butterflies which are very tasty. The ones
mhm.
that have, often it's the underside of the wings is camouflaged. So when they close their wings, it looks like a leaf, but then when they open their wings, it's very bright and colorful. And so that the open part of the wings is thought to be a sexual signal, so they're signaling to a potential mate. Those types of butterflies, like I said, tend to be palatable. And then there's another strategy that some butterflies adopt, which is that they either as caterpillars or as adults, they sequester or synthesize toxic or bad tasting chemicals. And so often a bird or a lizard will learn to associate the color pattern of that butterfly with a bad taste. And then that's how in a particular geographical region, you might get unrelated butterflies start evolving to look like each other. These are often very brightly colored butterflies. They're often yellows, orange, red. They're kind of, very, very visible to birds, like, and so they stand out and they're really advertising like, don't eat me. I'm really bad tasting. And so that is definitely another strategy that butterflies take. There's other strategies too, like evolve an erratic flight behavior so that it's difficult for the birds to figure out which direction you're going to be flying in. So there's behavioral strategies as well that combine with, color pattern and as a evasive defense for butterflies.
Okay. As you'd expect, I suppose it's a combination of not wanting to be eaten, but then also wanting to show yourself off for sexual availability because
Exactly.
because all these animals reproduce sexually. Butterflies, normal sexual way, because I know insects also get pretty weird, but butterflies are kind of normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, okay. I went to England many years ago, and there were these moths that were one color before the Industrial Revolution, and then in a very short time they turned black to blend in with the just the amount of soot that was everywhere. And then now they're turning back to their original color, I guess. So that's a new gene or a new evolutionary feature that happens very quickly. And I suppose it happens quick in insects, which have, I guess I don't even know, butterflies have a life cycle of 1 year, or is it?
Oh no, it's shorter, a few
Okay.
weeks. I should say the adult stage can last a few weeks. The life cycle, it just depends on the species. Some species, you can go from egg to adult in maybe a month, usually depending upon where in the world they are. Either there's continuous breeding throughout the year, or you might have a what's known as a diapause. So like in the winter they might hang out as a pupa or they might hang out as an adult, and then not until like the photoperiod and the temperature is right do they continue their development, and then
Okay.
continue that way. Yeah.
Okay. When we think about evolution and how long it takes to change into a new species or something, and that we've seen, it didn't change into a new species, these moths, but they really dramatically changed a feature. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit on the selection pressures that create these changes. I read somewhere, or I saw a video, I think, that like something like eyebrows that gives how does something like eyebrows actually evolve, right? It gives you such a tiny advantage over not having them. How does a trait like that actually spread through a population? Basically how a whole species can change one trait from one change in one individual sometime, if that's how it works.
It's interesting you mentioned the Biston betularia story, which is also known as the industrial melanism stories. The cause of that color change was actually discovered several years back, and it turns out that I don't remember if it's the black morph or the white morph, but for the sake of argument, I'm gonna say that it was probably the black morph. That there was something known as a transposable element that jumped into a gene and disrupted it, and that produced the other morph. And so this example of where basically a single mutation has a large effect. So it changes it from, either white to black or black to white. And then you have, an environment where the story goes that because of all of the pollution, which was so tremendous, that the bark of the trees that these moths would like to, rest on during the day started to get, really dark. And so it became advantageous to be a dark-winged moth sitting against a very dark, sooty tree, because the birds that are hopping around in the tree looking for something to eat, might not notice you because you're blending in so well. And so that is actually an example of where, a single, mutation of major effect can, then in the population its frequency began to rise rather quickly, because the major problem that butterflies face or moths face is predation. That's kind of the major problem that they face as adults, as predation. If they've made it to the adult stage, if they haven't been felled by parasitoids or eaten by predatory ants or whatever, if they make it to the adult stage, the major problem is like being eaten by a bird. So things can change rather quickly. You can get a trait spreading in a population, within years even. And then we see that with pesticide resistance. That's another example of something that can evolve, very, very quickly in an insect population, especially when you're talking about insects that have very short generation times.
So all the animals that have the trait literally are descendants from the one that had that mutation, right? And so that's kind of how populations of animals change, is that they evolve from one mutation at a time.